Picture this. It's the end of the month. You open your banking app, check your balance, and you think to yourself, okay, I didn't save anything this month either. Not because you spent recklessly, not because you bought anything crazy. You just lived. Bills, groceries, a few small things here and there. And once again, there's nothing left over to save. So you tell yourself, next month I'll save more. But next month looks exactly the same, and the month after that. And slowly you start to believe something kind of depressing, that you'll only be able to save real money once you earn way more than you do right now. But here's the thing. That belief is almost completely wrong, because the people who build wealth usually don't do it with giant heroic moves. They do it with something almost laughably small, 1%. And once I understood how the 1% rule actually works, the entire way I thought about money quietly changed.
My name is Jack, and I spend way too much time thinking about how small habits turn into big money. If you're someone who feels like saving is impossible unless you suddenly start earning a lot more, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. So let's start with something that might sound a little controversial. The amount you save matters way less than you think. What actually matters is the system that saves it for you. Because here's what most people get wrong. They treat saving like a big, dramatic decision, a moment of willpower. This month, I'm going to be disciplined. But willpower runs out, motivation fades, and then you're right back where you started. The 1% rule flips that completely. Instead of trying to save a huge chunk all at once, you increase your saving rate by just 1% at a time. That's it, 1%. Now, I know what you're thinking. 1%? That sounds way too small to matter. And honestly, that's exactly why it works. Let me show you the numbers. Imagine you earn $4,000 per month. 1% of that is just $40. That's it. You probably wouldn't even notice $40 leaving your account. You wouldn't feel deprived. You wouldn't have to cut anything dramatic. But here's where it gets interesting. After a few months, you bump it to 2%, then 3%. And because each jump is so small, your brain barely registers the change. You adjust without even feeling it. Now, let's talk about why this works, because it's not really about the money, it's about psychology. Behavioral researchers have found that humans hate sudden, dramatic change. If you try to go from saving 0 to saving 20% overnight, your brain treats it like a threat. It feels like loss, and your brain fights loss hard. But a 1% change? Your brain shrugs. It barely notices. So instead of fighting your psychology, the 1% rule sneaks past it. This is the exact same principle behind those famous Save More Tomorrow programs that economists like Richard Thaler designed. People who couldn't save anything suddenly started building real money simply because the increases were small and automatic.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, Jack, but even if I get to 10%, that's still not a fortune.
Totally fair. So let's actually run the long-term math, because this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say you start at 1% of that $4,000 income and slowly climb to around 15% over a couple of years. By then, you're saving roughly $600 a month. Now, imagine you invest that consistently with an average return of 8% per year. After 25 years, that grows to roughly $570,000. And here's the crazy part. You never made a single dramatic sacrifice. You never went broke trying to save. You just increased by 1% again and again, and let time do the heavy lifting. This is where most people completely misunderstand wealth. They think it comes from one big move, perfect investment, the lucky break, the huge raise. But the truth is far less exciting. Wealth is mostly built by small actions repeated for a long time. And the 1% rule is basically a delivery system for exactly that.
Let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine you're trying to get in shape, and on day 1, you decide to run 10 miles. What happens? You're exhausted, you're sore, and you quit by day 3. But what if you ran for just 1 minute on day 1? Then 2 minutes, then 3. It feels almost too easy. But a year later, you're a completely different person. Saving money works exactly the same way. The 1% rule isn't about the single step. It's about making the step so small that you never stop taking it. Now, here's what most people don't realize. The hardest part of saving was never the money. It was the starting. Going from 0 to something feels enormous, but going from 1% to 2%, that feels like nothing. And because it feels like nothing, you actually do it.
That's the secret. The rule removes the resistance, and once the resistance is gone, consistency takes over.
But let me address the obvious skepticism here. You might be thinking, what if my expenses are already so tight that I can't even save 1%? That's a real situation, and I won't pretend it isn't. But here's the reframe. The 1% rule isn't only about income, it's about direction. Even if you can only manage 0.5%, the point is that you're moving the needle in the right direction, building the habit, training your brain to treat saving as normal. Because once saving becomes normal, every future raise, every bonus, every bit of extra income naturally flows toward your future instead of vanishing into spending. And that's actually the most powerful part. Most people, when they get a raise, immediately raise their lifestyle too. Bigger apartment, nicer car, more subscriptions. Economists even have a name for this: lifestyle inflation. Your spending quietly grows to match whatever you earn, which is why so many people make more money and somehow feel just as broke. But the 1% rule fixes this almost automatically. The next time you get a raise, you simply send 1% more of it to saving before your lifestyle has a chance to absorb it. You never miss money, you never started spending.
Now, let's talk about how to actually set this up, because it should be effortless. Step 1, find out your current saving rate. Maybe it's 0. That's completely fine. Step 2, increase it by just 1% this month. On a $4,000 income, that's $40 automatically transferred the day you get paid. Step 3, set a reminder to bump it up by another 1% every couple of months. And step 4, whenever your income increases, raise your saving rate before you adjust anything else. That's the entire system. No spreadsheets, no tracking every coffee, no guilt. And here's the part that genuinely surprised me.